And I had to make a choice. Now I got to leave you there for a minute. And I have to fulfill a vow that I made to a young man many years ago. I made a vow to this kid to tell a story every chance I had for one reason. He said, Steve, you tell my story. And if it helps one young person make the right choice in life, he said he'd do it all over again exactly how he did it, if it helped one. So because of this vow, I tell you a story this morning. Now look at me. If you hear nothing else this morning, hear this. Please don't listen from up here. Listen from inside of here. It may help you understand about never giving up and about following your dreams. Starts out when this kid was 7, had an older sister, a newborn sister, mom and dad. Everything a family wanted until one day. Mom and dad came and sat the kids down. The father looked at the two older kids and said, kids, always remember that daddy loves you. But mommy and daddy are getting a divorce. Daddy has to leave now. Kiss kids goodbye, walks out the door. Two older kids sat there devastated. Their father just left them. It wasn't supposed to happen that way. Their mother gathered around and said, don't worry, everything will be fine. We'll find a way. 3 months later, there's a knock on the front door. It's a sheriff. Boy was told to get his mother, then he heard his words. Ma'am, you have 1 hour to gather up your 3 children. You're allowed to take your clothes, your car, and that's it. Everything in this house has to be sold. You have to leave. During that hour, they got their clothes, walked through a door. Sheriff searched them to make sure they took nothing but their clothes, loaded the car, drove across the street. And for the next few hours, they watched everything they owned disappear. When the last truck pulled out of that driveway, this 7-year-old boy stood on the highway, tears falling down his face, crying, how could this happen? Everything he had was gone that quickly. His mother put him in the car. They drove over 14 hours to their new home. Their new home was a 2-room apartment in a rat-infested, drug-infested, violent-infested slum called Camden, New Jersey. First day on the street, kid had never been in a city before. He walks down an alley, only to discover the way out was the way he came in. Turns around, leave 5 kids standing in the alleyway. He thought, great new friends. Well, they were in a way. How they welcomed the boy neighborhood is they beat him so bad that they broke his nose and his ribs. They kicked and punched his kid until he didn't move anymore. Then he picked him up and said this, welcome to the neighborhood. Nobody ever leaves here, and neither will you. They then took him and dumped him at the front door of his apartment. That became his life for the next 5 years. But he says that wasn't so bad. By the time he was 8 years old, his mother had become a full-blown alcoholic. When she drinks, she'd get violent. And all her violence went at this boy. She'd spit at him, cuss at him, throw beer balls at him. But at 8 years old, she started throwing this kid out of the house. It could be for an hour or it could be for days. This kid lived in the streets. Young people, he told me he knew what it was like to be so hungry, he would eat out of a garbage can. Or having to sit up in the middle of the night to watch over a little sister so that rats wouldn't come in and nibble on her lips from where the milk was left from her bottle. But the worst pain of all is when he was on the streets and people would point their finger at that kid and say, there's a kid, he's no good. And he would scream back at people, he was so good, but nobody really cared. But 2 things he had going for him. One was school. School was a safe place. A place where he not only got to learn, he got a lunch, but he had teachers who cared enough about him to teach him what was right and what was wrong. The other thing was athletics. He poured his life into athletics no matter what the sport was. He figured that was the best way to keep him from doing all the negative stuff that he saw going on around him. Well, by the time he was 13, a lot of things had happened to him and his family. His older sister, by the time she was in her late teens, was mainlining heroin. Then one day the dad shows up and remarries the mom, moves the family back to a nice house in the suburb. Everything's supposed to be fine. Well, sophomore in high school, he goes to a new school, found out they were going to have a swimming team. Thought he'd join the swimming team as an after-football season conditioner. Went to the coach and asked if he could join. Coach said, fine. Boy said, one problem, though. He did not know how to swim. Coach kind of looked at him but gave him a chance. One length in the pool, 25 yards. He said from the time he jumped in till the time he climbed out took him almost 15 minutes. When he got to the other end of the pool, he laid on the deck. He said he felt like his heart was going to blow out his chest. And that coach came and stood over top of him and said, so, you still want to be a swimmer? Kid looked up and said, yes. Man said, fine, see you tomorrow in practice. That boy got right up in that man's face and said, why? See, you want to know if this guy was going to make fun of him like everybody else? This is what the man said. He said, son, I'm not going to make fun of you. I see something in you I believe in. First time, someone just didn't speak to his ears, but someone spoke to his dream. And he did not know what to do with that except go back to practice day after day. And in the beginning, a lot of people made fun of him. But by the end of that sophomore year, no one laughed at him anymore. He was their leading varsity sprinter and held 2 school records. By the end of his senior year, all conference, 5 records, went to college on a full academic and a swimming scholarship. Where his freshman year, he became the first freshman ever in his entire university's athletic history, in all sports, to become the first freshman All-American, finishing 12th in the nation. He later went on and set some kind of endurance record in swimming. And then a number of years ago, he called to tell me that he was awarded a national award given out by Gatorade. Life is a sport, drink it up. He was chosen from athletes all across the United States. Not just because of what he does athletically, but more importantly, because of what he does with it today. Look at me. You can have it better than this kid, the same as this kid, or even worse than this kid. But what you do with it is your choice. This kid would live his whole life over again if it helped one of you. So maybe I'll meet him today. He actually traveled with my wife and I. He's no longer a kid. I'd like to introduce you to him. It's me. I told you. Yes. Shh. Look at me. Look at me. I didn't come here to powder your little fannies. I told you in the beginning that that world out there will hurt you. I've lived in it, I've seen it, but you got to hear something. I've never been a part of it. I'm 53 now. Yeah, my wife always said I act like I'm 12. I go, well, shut up. I'm 53. I have never drank in my life, and I never will. I have never done drugs, and I never will. I believe in working hard. I believe when you fall down, you get up. I believe when you see somebody struggling, you give them a hand. I believe you get outside of yourself and you start